Hi, and welcome to Your Inside Power, where we help you to discover the superpowers that you have inside of you in order to create the life that you truly want to live. So I want to start out with a quote today, and this is by our Buckminster Fuller. And he says, "You can't change the way people behave. All you can do is to give them a tool, the use of which will change your behavior." So often we try to change other people's behavior, and we can't do that. All we can do is to help people by giving them a tool that, if they utilize it, will indeed change their behavior. Now, behavior is not an easy thing to do. Last week, I spent quite a bit of time talking about the different kinds of parts of your brain that we have. And we talked about the one being the robot brain, or the brain that is in control of our habitual behaviors. And our habitual behaviors are the things that some of them are really good. Because we don't have to think about them. We don't have to think about the routine that we go into in the morning when we get ready, or the routine that we go into when we drive. Now, when you first start driving a car or a bike, for that matter, you had to learn certain things, and you had to be very careful and cautious. And I remember one time when I got to drive my dad downtown and park the car and so on. I had to be so careful of everything because it was new to me. But once you get used to it, you just kind of get in the car and you go. In fact, sometimes you will get in a car and you will go and you'll end up in the wrong place. Has that ever happened to you? I can remember one time I was so used to going one direction and getting off one exit of the highway, and I needed to go someplace else. And I totally forgot what I was doing. And by habit, I got off the wrong exit because that's what I was used to. And so we have to realize that some of those habits are really good because you don't have to think about them. Obviously, I was not thinking, or I wouldn't have gotten off at the wrong exit. My robot brain was taking over. It was getting me to where I thought I was going out of habit instead of where I wanted to go, which was not out of habit. So we have to look at what behaviors we have that are being controlled by this robot brain that aren't serving us well. And then we have that other part of our brain, which we call the monkey brain. And these were Darren Hardy. I got this information from him, but we have that monkey brain, or that one that's always chasing the shiny objects. Whatever's out there, oh yeah, I want to go do that. Whatever's new, yeah, I want to go do that. And you're always chasing after something that you don't necessarily want or need. And I know when I started my business, and maybe some of you who can relate to this, that when you start a business, somebody tells you to do this and say, you chase after that. And then somebody else comes by and says, oh, you need this, so you chase after that. And then something else comes by and you chase after that. And you're always chasing. And that's the part of our brain that gets easily distracted. More and more, people are almost conditioning themselves to be ADHD, or attention deficit disorder, or ADHD, or ADD. Any of those, we're actually training our brains to make us attention deficit. And I'll talk about that in a minute. And then, of course, there's the other part of your brain, the sage brain, the creative brain. This is where you want more time. But this is actually the smallest part. The robot brain, it controls so much of our day. It controls all our bodily functions. You don't have to think to tell your heart to beat. It just does it. You don't have to tell yourself to swallow. It just does it. You don't have to tell your eyes to blink. They just do. And so it controls all those bodily functions, but it also controls a lot of our behaviors. Where did our behaviors come from? They were programmed. Many of them were programmed. Chances are, when you put on pants in the morning, or whenever during the day you put one leg in first and then the other leg, and it becomes a routine. Why is it that way? Chances are it's because your mom put that leg on you, put your legs in pants that way when you were a child. It became a habit. Have you ever tried this, like crossing your fingers one over the other and then switch it the other way, and how awkward it feels? Or holding your hands like one on top of the other and switching it, and how awkward it feels? Because we develop these habits. Well, if that feels awkward, can you imagine that something in your mind that was so embedded in there since the time you were a small child, how difficult it is to change? Now, some of the habits are really good. Like I said, I got in a habit of thanking people all the time. If somebody does something, I thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. That's not a bad habit to get into. And so there's some habits that are really good and they're serving you very well. We have to figure out what about those ones that aren't serving us well. So when you need to change a habit, you have to desire that change. And that becomes difficult. So you have to want that change. That's why you can't change somebody else. A lot of times people get married and they think, something about their significant other really bothers them. And they think, it's okay. When we get married, I'll change that. You can't change it. We can only change ourselves, first of all. We can't change somebody else. We can give them a tool to help them to change, but we can't change them. And if they have no desire to change, that ain't going to work anyway. So you have to realize that you first have to have a desire to change. How do you get that desire? Well, lots of times it's because you have a goal that's inspiring you to such a high degree that you want to change. You can't reach that goal. Now let's look at that for a minute. Everything that you have right now, you have because you have that ability to get it, you have that confidence to get it, and you have had that desire. Now, sometimes we look at our goals and we say, well, that's not what I want, or something we have, that's not what I want. Well, that's probably true. Consciously, it isn't, but subconsciously is another story. Our subconscious mind controls all our actions. And so even though we want something really badly, our subconscious is in control. And if it's saying you're not worthy to have it, or you're not good enough to have it, or anything like that, the actions won't be there. So we have to have the desire. We have to have, and to have that desire, we have to have something bigger than where we are that's going to make us change. If we don't have something that's bigger than us, why would we want to change? It's hard work to change. It takes energy to change. And so if we're looking at this idea that we don't really want anything different, why would you go through the bother of changing? So you have to have a goal that's going to excite you and that you don't know how to get it. Now, some people think that's crazy. Why would you have a goal you don't know how to achieve? Well, because that's exciting. And it's exciting because when you have that goal that you don't know how to achieve, you have to change, or it's not going to happen. Sometimes that seems a little crazy, but when you have a really big goal, like I have this really big goal, and I've just been thinking about it and thinking about it. I don't know how I'm going to get it, because it's going to take an enormous amount of money and an enormous amount of change on my behalf. But I just kind of let the idea float in my head. And ideas keep coming to me. What do I need to do? How do I need to do it? And just a little before I started my show today, I was looking at something I'd worked on this morning. And I thought, okay, now that took me all morning to do this, but let's look at the result. All I need is 4% of the work that I did this morning to be positive, and I will more than double what I wanted to do. At 4%, that's not very many. That's not very much. 4% of the work I did in 3 hours this morning, I only need results, 4%. Now, you may say, well, 4%, geez, that doesn't seem like a very big goal. It's a huge goal. But what did I do? I broke it down into what I need. What do I need to accomplish that goal? Very, very little. And chances are, most of your goals are the same way. It seems like a huge goal, but we break it down. Bob Proctor told me that. He taught me to carry around a calculator. Now, I don't carry this around with me because if I really need a calculator, I just pull out my phone. But I have this sitting on my desk all the time, which is why it's so easy for me to just grab it. I can't tell you how many times I pull out this calculator and break something down. What do I need to do this week in order to accomplish that goal? What do I need to do today? And with my clients, I've built them a process where you can actually start to chart what it is you need to do. Because if you don't chart something, if you don't get statistics about something, it's not going to happen. But when you can start to break it down and check with your statistics, you see where things are not getting accomplished. And so you have to have some type of gauge as to what's important in order to accomplish that goal. And most people don't even think about it. They just go day to day thinking, okay, I'll just keep doing what I'm doing. But if it's not getting you any place, then that's a problem, right? And so we need to learn to focus. Now, this morning when I was, before I started working on this project, I was doing my daily reading and meditation and so on. And I got so excited about this. One thing I learned today, and I want to share it with you because it made a massive difference for me. So I've been studying about meditation, and I've been studying about how to change your behaviors, because I know I have behaviors I need to change in order to accomplish that really big goal. And I've got to do some things differently, and I've got to set things in place in the next couple of weeks in order to make sure I accomplish what I want. So here's the thing. When you're meditating, the first part of meditation, and it may take you a while to think about this, what is holding you back? What is keeping you stuck where you are instead of where you want to be? So when you figure that out, and I'll tell you what, for a lot of people, if you're not sure, or maybe you just don't even want to admit it, I think I mentioned this last week that I was in a couple different seminars in the last couple of years with a variety of people, coaches being a lot of them, and nearly every person in those seminars felt that they weren't good enough. Why does that happen? Why do so many people feel that they're not good enough? I was one of them. I'll be honest. I was one of them. I don't feel like I'm good enough, or I didn't feel like I'm good enough. And that's such a huge piece. Why does that happen? Where is that programming come from? Is that programming coming from our parents? Is that programming coming from the fact that, I know as a child, sometimes my mom would say things, or my dad would say things like, like money doesn't grow in trees, or, hey, we're not like so-and-so, who was really wealthy, or who they thought was wealthy in town. We don't live on that side of the railroad tracks, or that side of the developments, and so there's that perception. Now, it's not said you're not good enough, but what's it telling you? over time, that's telling you that you can't have something because you didn't have the wealthy parents, because you didn't have the education, because you are too old, you're too young, you're too ugly, you're too pretty, you're too whatever stupid ideas you have in your head. That's what you're telling yourself. And then you just keep reinforcing it. So we have to first look at what is it that's keeping us stuck and start making a list. And then what I want you to do when you start your meditation, release all that, let it go. Say, this is not who I am. This is not serving me well. This is no longer who I'm going to be. And then replace it with who you want to be. I am good enough. I have the confidence to just sail right through life. I have the confidence to do this or that, and replace it with what you really want. Say that big goal. Have that confidence. And you know what? If you want, reach out to me. I'll give you a script you can use, because I have a couple of scripts then I go through that reinforce exactly the kind of behaviors that I need to have in order to accomplish my goals. It might be a position you want, or it might be an organization or a team you're building. This morning I was talking about the team. I have a small team, I want a bigger team. I have positions that I'm going to be hiring. And so I need to see that first. But before I can have that team in place, I have to become the person I need to be. You see, results always follow your change, which is why change is important if you have a big goal, because the results always follow. It doesn't come before. It's not like, you can say, I want fire, but, you wait for the fire until you wait for it to give you the fire, but you don't give it any wood. It doesn't work that way. You have to put the wood, you have to build the fire first. And then you'll get that warmth instead of just wanting that fire to give you that warmth without doing anything. So you're going to have to make an inventory of the things that aren't serving you well. And then chances are, once you do that, now you know what you do need to serve you well. And sometimes, you may have to decide, okay, I need to give up some things. What things do you need to give up in order to accomplish your goal? Is it some friends, or maybe even some loved ones that aren't helping you? And so temporarily, or maybe permanently, you have to give something up in order to accomplish your goal. The other thing I want to talk about is focus. You need to be able to focus. And we need to be able to concentrate on what it is that we want. And I already said that a lot of us are making ourselves become ADD or ADHD, attention deficit. And how are we doing that? By distractions. Let me show you one of the biggest distractions you have. This is it right here, your phone. Why is it a big distraction? Because if you have it turned on, which I rarely have my phone turned on as far as sounds, it's distracting you because you're getting bings and buzzes. I finally was so happy because I learned to figure out how to turn off that message that kept floating every time a message would come in through Instagram or email on my computer. I was like, oh my gosh, finally I figured out how to turn off, because that was a distraction for me. Now, here's what statistics show us, is that when you get distracted, it can take you up to 23 minutes to get your mind set back on what it is you were working on. 23 minutes. How many distractions do you have in a day, and how many 23 minutes are you losing? You start to add that up. 23 minutes, here's a distraction. 23 minutes, here's a distraction. 23 minutes. You can spend a whole day and get nothing done. Has that ever happened to you? Because this happened to me. You get so distracted. And so you have to find a way to eliminate the distractions, or maybe not eliminate them, control them. You have to be in control. You have to learn how to control those distractions that are going to come to your life. And then set things in order. so that you're the winner. So think about this. What is it costing you with all these distractions? What's the cost? What is it that you need to prevent happening so that you can move forward? Now, it's not just costing you in money. So I don't want you to look at cost as just a monetary thing. What's it costing you as far as your relationships? What's it costing you as far as your self-confidence? What's it costing you for energy, for your health, for your children, for your significant other? What is it costing you to be distracted, to not be able to focus, to have behaviors that aren't serving you well? What is the cost? And I think you'd be amazed. You would be absolutely amazed. The other thing I want you to think about, and I was resistant to this, I'm still a little resistant to it in a way, but what is it that you do really well? What's the 20% that you do really well? And focus on becoming better at that. Now, I say I resist that because I went to this workshop one time, and they were talking about personalities, and they were showing you how if you're a personality, if you're good at this, that's what you should do. And here's why I resist that. I believe that we have unlocked talents inside of us, and that we have more ability than we realize, and that we can do more than we realize. So I hate to see people pigeonholed into, this is your job because that's all you're good at. Do you understand what I'm saying? So I do believe that there's 20% of what we do that will get us the best results. That I do believe. Doesn't mean that sometimes we don't have to do some of those 80% until we get a team built that can pick up on some of that other stuff. You know, there's things that I don't really like doing, but I do them because I know I have to. But I'll tell you what, I will be more than happy to turn that over to the right person. In fact, I'm going to have some conversations in this next week of, things I can turn over to other people, because quite honestly, it's not my 20%. So, we have to look at what are we really good at, and then spend our time in that lane. Doesn't mean we can't learn some other things if we want to, and if we enjoy them. But if you're not enjoying something, find somebody who does enjoy it, because there's somebody who enjoys exactly what you don't enjoy. I know that's hard to imagine. It's hard to imagine that, I think of, I don't particularly like being outside, mainly because I get eaten by bugs. So I don't like being outside, don't have any desire to deal with plants and gardens and everything. But you know what? My grandparents loved that. They loved sharing their plants and love of flowers with everybody. Now, that did not pass on to their granddaughter, and I'm so sorry it did not. But they loved it. I don't. If plants can take care of themselves, better for it. So there's things that you love doing, I don't love doing. There's things that I love doing, you don't love doing. I'm very analytical. I love to do the numbers. Most people think that's crazy. I enjoy it. But you will find somebody that likes what you don't like, and then hire them. Okay. So I know we're running out of time here, and so I want to make sure that I'm not missing anything. Oh, we need to figure out what we're addicted to. There are all kinds of addictions. It's not just drugs and alcohol and things like that, food. We're addicted to all kinds of things. Look at your usage of phone. What are you addicted to? If you forgot your phone for a day, could you survive? See, I know I can, because I've done that. But there are times when I'm very addicted, and I'm still trying, like that messaging thing coming on my computer. I was so grateful to be able to figure out how to turn it off, because I was addicted to being distracted by it. Now I check my emails when I choose. I'm in control of it. And if somebody sends me something, they don't get a response for a few hours. That's just the way it is. But I control the distractions. So think about, what's it costing you, okay? Think about your what you have, and think about super achievers. People that are highly successful, they do think differently. They do not think like the masses. And all you have to do is to get around somebody that's a high super achiever, and you'll find out very quickly they don't think like you do. And you have to be very careful what you say around them, because they will dismiss you very quickly. So what is it that sets their mindset different? One thing we do know is they're very focused. They're not going to be distracted by things. They're going to get focused. They're going to get that job done and move on. And that's what you need to do. Instead of setting a, 2-page to-do list, what am I going to get done this morning? What am I going to get done this afternoon? Get it finished. Don't let it lag on. Stay very focused on what it is you need to do, and protect yourself from distractions. Now, I have a whole training on this and, what to do. So please reach out to me. I put a place there in the show for you to contact me and schedule a session with me, because you know what? There are ways I can help you make that breakthrough. But here's what I want you to do for the week. I want you to think of 3 things, just 3 things. 3 things that you're doing out of habit that are not serving you well. Now, some of you might say, oh, I don't know if I can do it. Yes, you have to become aware of what it is you're doing. What things are causing you not to be as productive as you could be? What things are keeping you where you are instead of moving forward to your dreams? And then when you identify those 3 things, what are you going to do to change it? What are you going to do to change your behaviors? Because only you can change your behaviors. And I know it's not easy. I started really working on this very hard the last couple of weeks. What behaviors? Because I had that big, big goal. And I know if I don't do something different, it can't happen. And I don't mean to be negative about that. I like to be a very positive person, but it's not going to happen unless I do something different. So I've been looking very closely and becoming very aware of my behaviors and what it's causing and what it's preventing me from achieving. So I want you to do that too this week. Figure out 3 things and what you can do to change them. Next week, I have a very special guest coming on. I'm super excited to have Haley Rowe on with us, and she's going to share some of the things she does to change her inside powers, to change her inside voice, to have higher achievement. So it's Patricia Stepler with your inside power, and I want you to make it a great day and to be the magic in your dreams.